I want to have fun with this tonight, okay? I love studying human performance. It's my passion. Been doing it for about 30 years now. But I want to talk about something that was really relevant to me in the last little bit. As Sam was saying, I've done some work in the NBA the last couple of years, which has been super fun for me. Did work with the Cavaliers for a while, and I've been working with another team since I've been working with them, and they've been a ton of fun. But one of the things that I've been always trying to do, I'm always studying, how do we help people just keep being better? How do we get the most out of people? And so today I want to go through something that's a little bit personal to me, so I usually don't share this, but I had a birthday, and there's significance here. So December 22nd, I had my 48th birthday. Now the only reason I'd ever share that with you is my dad actually got cancer at 48 and was dead by 52. I was a sophomore here on athletic scholarship in a university, BYU here, when that happened. So what happens when that happens in your life? Well, for me, my whole life was to blow right by that. My goal is to live into my 90s. So one of the mental things, though, in the back of your mind, is that little bit of fear. And I just don't like living life with fear. I think that's one of the biggest sources of interference that holds us back from maximizing our potential and really doing it. That's what human performance is. Performance is doing it. And so I wanted to blow right by that. So that was Saturday, December 22nd. On Sunday, I needed to fly back to work with one of these NBA teams, and got back there, and we had a game Christmas Day. So I went back there, and New Year's Day, I was working with these athletes, and we've been working for 2 years to try and build this program and build the culture. Coaches are amazing there, and we've been doing a good job there. Here's a skill that I wanted to go through with you that I went through with them that is just working so well right now. Our team has been killing it. One of the players on the team has been the player of the week the last couple of weeks and going to the All-Star, and I got to be careful with names, but he's been crushing it. Here's the skill, because so many of us, particularly millennials, those of you out there that are millennials, and those of us that are working with millennials, and we all live in the digital age. Because we all live in the digital age, it creates this cognitive load, which means we all have so much stimulation coming at us. And here is the bane of humanity right now. It's called overthinking. When we overthink things, it locks our mind, and it doesn't allow us to fully maximize our potential. And we never really achieve what we really want. And so what happens in this world, there's 4 intelligences. 4. There's a spiritual intelligence. I'm not talking about religion. There's a spiritual intelligence, which gives you purpose in life. There's an emotional intelligence, which is energy. There's mental, and there's physical. Spiritual, emotional, mental, and physical. There's 4. But I just want to go through this for a minute, because so many people think life is just the physical. Let's talk about the physical side. There are some people born in this world, and they're just physical brutes. They're bigger and stronger than everyone. They're like cavemen or cavewomen. And they just go about their life trying to physically live life. What's the problem, though, as you start to age and you start to lose that physicality? You start to lose that sense of control, and anxiety goes up. There are even some males and females in their life that maybe they're better looking than the average human being, so they use their physicality to try to control others. They try to make sense of this world through one of the 4 intelligences. Let's go back up. The mental, there are some of us that are born in this life that they think they're smarter than everyone else. So they try to explain this world by being more intelligent than others, and that's their way of trying to gain control of this life. Then there's others that are emotion, which is energy, that try to bring more energy than others. And that's how they try to control their environment, by just simply bringing more intensity, more energy. Then again, there's others that try to be more spiritual than everyone else. That because they've read the Bible more times than somebody else, they think they're more important than everyone else, even though their bishop is having to pay their rent because they don't actually do it. So here's my point. What we're learning is it's not one of the intelligence that makes you great. The key to high performance is all 4. You need the spiritual side because that's what gives you purpose. The spirit is also known as a moral compass. That's what gives you the purpose and direction in life. That's what turning inwards and trusting yourself what you really want, which, as Sam just talked about, that's self-belief, which I'm going to talk about a little later. You've got to have this deep belief in yourself if you want to be high-performing. Because if you don't know what your own purpose is, what happens is, and this has been found to be the single greatest cause of failure, is we conform. When we conform, whose goals is it? Somebody else's. When it's somebody else's goal, whose life do you live? Somebody else's. And that's why that's so dangerous. We have got to figure out what it is we want to do with our life. And the reason I started this whole talk today about my birthday and my dad is because when you're thinking about these sort of things, in the end, at the great end of your life, what matters? I'm getting 48 years of age. Every moment of my day of what I do is critical. So that first part is I've got to figure out what my purpose is. And I got to stick with that so I don't conform to others. And that's what gives me direction in life. Without purpose, where's your mind going? Well, it's contributing to that bouncing all over the place and getting distracted. So your purpose, that's the spiritual, creates the emotional energy. Emotion is energy. We need energy. It's the driver of life. Think about it like it's an engine. That's the engine that drives you to your purpose. It's like having a Ferrari engine. You need that engine to get you there. If you don't have the passion, it's never going to happen. If we were to hook up your heart to an EKG machine and it showed a flat line, what does that mean? That means you're dead. That means you're vanilla. That means you're boring. That means you're not having any passion for life. We need to have passion for life, and that passion comes from the purpose. That's energy. We got to have energy. You don't want to be driving a broken down Subaru engine. You want a Ferrari engine in what you're trying to do. So again, the spiritual gives you direction. The emotion is the energy to get there. So think about it like driving. If you drive out of your driveway, out of your pocket, and you have no purpose, you have no idea where you're going, where will you end up? Try it sometime. Drive out of your driveway with no direction. I guarantee you'll end up back in your driveway within the hour. You're just going around in circles in your life. You got to have purpose. You got to know where you're going, but you need the engine to get you there. So you got to take care of that engine. You can't burn the engine out. That's the motivation. Purpose creates motive. And so if you don't have clear purpose, you're burning that energy. You're going to lose your motivation. When you lose your motivation, you're going to start procrastinating. And I'm going to talk about that here in more detail. So the purpose creates the motive, and you've got to manage that motive. That's your energy. It's like a fire. If you don't take care of it, the fire can go out, and you just start coasting and going through the motion. If you overrun it, it causes danger when you're always running that engine in the red. The mind is the driver. Mental intelligence is not IQ, by the way. I'm not bought into that. The IQ test that we talk about that measures intelligence was actually a German psychologist that simply put that title on his 2 profiles. I have 5 profiles I use when I profile. I do the draft for the NBA teams I work with. The last couple of years I've been profiling for a couple of different teams, although I've gone exclusive with this one team. One of the guys that I told both teams to draft last year ended up runner-up in first year as a rookie. We can track the patterns now. We can see it. And I got 5 profiles. But 150 years ago, this German psychologist titled it Intelligence Quotient. And so what have we all thought for the last 150 years? You know, the research actually shows the higher the IQ, the lower performing you become. The higher the IQ, the lower performing. It's an inverse relationship. Why would that be? The higher the IQ, what happens to the busyness of the mind? And what happens to actually doing it? So we want to be intelligent, but to me, mental toughness, see, IQ tests just test your book smarts. Mental intelligence is how well you use your mind. It's not just storing information, it's can you use it, which is can you apply it. Just what Sam was doing up here, it's about the application. So that's the mental side. The mind is like the driver. It's the one controlling the destination and controlling the engine. But here's the big point for today. All of that, spiritual, emotional, mental, is all there so that you can physically do. It's the doing that really matters in life. But most people really don't do. They get so distracted, they really don't engage in life. They get so distracted in their own mind and they're swimming around their own heads and they don't really take deliberate action. They avoid. They're waiting for somebody else to let it happen. That is really the key to success, is the doing. And so I want to show you some research here in a minute, but why this is on my mind again is, this is what, as I realize I get to 48 years of age, my dad died at 52, your time is your biggest asset. You only have so much time. What are you going to do with your time? And what I mean by that is, so many of us are too worried about trying to be a superstar. Michael Jordan just came out and said all these millennials are trying to be a superstar and they're not doing their job. I was never trying to be a superstar. I was just busy trying to master what I did. I want to jump into this for a minute, because while I was thinking about that over the Christmas break, and this was really on my mind just with the significance of my age and where I'm at, I started doing some research, and I find this article on procrastination. And there's the first part is Jerry Seinfeld. How many of you guys know Jerry Seinfeld? I love Jerry Seinfeld, and I've watched his show for years. According to Forbes magazine, Seinfeld reached the peak in earnings when in 1998 he made $267 million. Yes, that is in 1 year. No, that's not a typo. The thing that's amazing there, some of you going 267, that's not that much. This is not a business making 267 million. That's one person. 0 employees, one person. One person produced enough to create $267 million. That's amazing, isn't it? As it went by, it says, by almost any measure of wealth, popularity, and critical acclaim, Jerry Seinfeld is one of the most successful comedians, writers, and actors of his generation. However, what is most impressive about Seinfeld's career isn't the awards, earnings, or the special moments. It's the remarkable consistency of it all. Show after show, year after year, he performs, creates, and entertains at an incredibly high standard. Jerry Seinfeld produces at a level of consistency most of us wish we could bring to our daily work. Compare his results where you and I often find ourselves. We want to create but struggle to do so. We want to exercise but fail to find the motivation. Wanting to achieve our goals, but for some reason or another, we still procrastinate. I'm jumping ahead here. Brad Isaac, a young comedian starting out on the comedy circuit, one night found himself in a club with Jerry Seinfeld was performing. In an interview on Lifehacker, Isaac shared what happened when he caught Seinfeld backstage and asked any tips for a young comic. Here's how it went. He told me he said, the way to be a better comic was to create better jokes. And the way to create better jokes was to write every day. Now that may seem simple to you, but there is so much in that sentence. What he's talking about, he's not talking about results. He's talking about the performance. He's not talking about being a superstar. It's about building your craft. That's what Jerry's talking about. It's about mastering yourself. I want to say that again. It is about mastering yourself. It is personal development that the research shows leads to success. It is about developing and mastering what you do. Whereas when we're deploying our mental resources to all these other things, you're taking energy away from actually mastering the action. Everyone's looking for the shortcut. Everyone's looking for the easy way to get there. There isn't. I like this next paragraph he says. He told me to get a big wall calendar that was the whole year on one page and hang it on a prominent wall. The next step was to get a big red magic marker. He said for each day that I do my task of writing, I should put a big X over that day. After a few days, you'll have a chain. Just keep at it and the chain will grow longer every day. You'll like seeing that chain, especially when you get a few weeks under your belt. Your only job is to not break the chain. It is the consistency that conditions who we are. I love this. I love this because every time you make a commitment to do something and you can cross it out, that's a dopamine hit. And every time you have a dopamine hit, what's happening to your passion and your motivation for life? Every time you say you're going to do something and you don't do it, what happens to your motivation? Can you see why we've got so much high anxiety and depression in this world? It's the doing that leads to success in life. It's not about not doing, it's the action that actually leads to it. What the research says, top performers in every field, athletics, musicians, CEOs, artists, they're all more consistent than their peers. That's it, guys. They're more consistent. Some of these athletes I get to work with these days, they put the work in, day out. They're not doing something different that's special. It's the consistency of what they're working on. And they're not just turning up to work just to crunch the numbers. They're not just turning up and putting in hours and going, yep, I put in 12 hours today. It's the action. That's a result. When you're focusing on getting it done, you're focusing on the outcome, not the actual action. I like this one line here. It says, they show up and deliver day after day while everyone gets bogged down with the urgencies of daily life and fights a constant battle between procrastination and motivation. Most of us are procrastinating and not motivated to do the little things every day. So there's two things already. If you're taking notes, can you write this down? Focus on doing. One of the athletes I work with on this team actually texted me right before I was about to get up here, and his mind's bouncing around again because he's going to get big minutes tonight because somebody's got hurt. So he's only a young guy, and he's getting his chance, and his mind's bouncing all over the place. That is the biggest source of interference right now to this generation. We're overthinking everything. We still need to think. I'm not asking you to be mindless cavemen and women. You need to be deliberate, but it's the action that really matters. And we need to embrace the action instead of trying to avoid the action. So many people are trying to get out of doing the work. It's the work that is the fun part. Embrace the doing. And so as I go through this here, here's the human mind as we know it. The top 10% is the conscious mind. The bottom 90 is the subconscious. The subconscious is the soul of a human being. It's the subconscious is who we really are. And whatever you do the most is what conditions that subconscious. Whatever you do the most. My son, who I love to death, he's at the university where I work at. Now he's a freshman there. The other day he's been a punk. And I said to him, man, you're being a rude punk today. Is he a punk? Is he a punk in general, or is that just that moment? Just that moment. If he was a punk every single day for 2 weeks, what would it be fair for me to say? You're a punk. It's the consistency of what you do that creates the patterns. And the patterns are the habits that define who we are. It's the action that matters. Now, I want to just go a little bit further here. I don't have a huge amount of time with you guys today, but I want to get to some of the key things. As I'm just saying, it's the patterns that create the habits. I want to go through the different patterns. The worst patterns there are called subtractive patterns. When you hear the word subtract, what does subtract mean? It means to take away. So if you're always focusing on what not to do, that's an action that is reactive. You're creating patterns in the subconscious that are tearing down your performance, that are destructive. Okay, that's an action that is negative. Those are the worst patterns there are, focusing on what not to do. If you want to be depressed, I could get you all depressed. All you have to do is tomorrow morning tell yourself in a really strong tone, I can't get out of bed. Those words, I can't get out of bed, what's going to happen? You're not going to do anything. Now let's go up the food chain. So subtractive is worst case scenario. Let's go up the food chain. Negative thoughts. A negative thought's going to kill your performance. No, they're not. Negative thoughts just occupy the conscious mind. There's no action connected to them. So negative thoughts aren't really hurting you in the moment. That's why you see some people out in this world that are negative but still produce. Now, if you always are negative, maybe one day you'll be a member of the fraternal order of the disappointed, because all you ever do is see the world in a negative light. But that's not hurting you at the core. Big difference between subtractive thoughts and being negative. Let's keep going. So, subtractive thoughts are worse. Next one up is negative thoughts. We'll talk about other people's thoughts later. Let's go to positive thoughts, because this is one of the big points I wanted to share with you guys today. Because there's a lot of people out there trying to teach you to think positive. How hard is that to think positive? How exhausting is it to always try and think positive? Positive, positive, positive. And try to be positive. Wake up in the morning, I'm going to be positive today. You're driving down the street and some punk cuts you off. What happens to being positive? It's tiring, it's exhausting. You work your butt off to try and be positive again, and then somebody else does it to you, and what's happening again? How hard is it to be trying to always think positive? And isn't it exhausting? Here's the key. Thinking positive will never change your performance. Thinking positive will never help you to be high performing. It cannot. It's not possible neurologically, because there's no action connected to it. Thinking positive will get you to see the world in a positive way, and that will help you to be happier and healthier. And I want you to be happier and healthier, but thinking positive, don't kid yourself into thinking positive is going to help you to be higher performing. It won't. What's the opposite of subtractive? Additive. Can you write that down? Additive thought patterns. Additive is building, and they're the patterns we want. Additive patterns are actionable positive. They're proactive. And they're the patterns we want to condition. Because your subconscious is 90% of who you are. The subconscious controls your actions. It controls what you do. It's the action that leads to success in this world. It's about creating the right patterns. And there's the hierarchy of human performance. And that's what the highest performing people have figured out. It's not just about being positive. It's about the action they're creating. So you've got to always focus on the action. So I just want to keep going here. This is an old way of always thinking about things. It's called conventional wisdom, just doing it because that's how we've always done it. The science, though, says what we got to do is we've got to change, we've got to do our research and figure out what really works. And so here's the new form, by the way. So this is the old formula of success. We all have potential, and we need to train, right? That's the old. We all have potential, we got to train, and we'll become performing. Practice makes what? Perfect. It's one of the most erroneous pieces of the human race. Practice does not make perfect. But that's what we've been taught our whole lives. The problem is, see, what the research shows, if you practice the wrong things, what will actually happen? You'll actually get worse, not better. The formula for success we've found is, though, it's not potential plus training. It's potential plus training minus interference. It's the interference we've got to get out of the way. We create this interference and we lock our mind and we don't let all of our skills out. We're not letting all our experience. We're not using what we really have. We're locking up our potential there. We all have potential. We've got to train the right way, but we've got to get rid of the interference. I'll go through this quickly because we've got to watch the time here a little bit. I've got to get you guys to the Jazz game, those of you who got tickets there. We all have potential. We don't have potential for everything. How you figure out how to channel your potential is the research says how we are born, our innate abilities, our genetics is an indication of what we will not do. So nature selects us in a certain direction. What this tells us is, therefore, we've got to figure out where to put our energy. As I'm saying, 48, I got to figure out where I'm going to put my energy. There's only so much time in this life. I want to figure out what I want to do with my life. I want to have so much time just to make what Jerry Seinfeld is saying. I wrote the book, The Fearless Mind, and I have this business going. I don't want to be a businessman. Not that it's bad. I don't want to run a business. Because if I turn my company into a business, what am I doing with my time for the rest of my life? I want to do what I want to do. What is it I want to do? I want to be a mental strength coach. That's what I do. I love the mind. I'm a performance coach. I don't want to do something with my life I don't want to do. I want to spend my life doing what I want to do. And I want to be a mental coach. What do I need to do to be a mental coach? Well, I got to get better at doing my research. I got to do my research and put together better coaching sessions. I'm not trying to be a superstar. I just want to do what I want to do as well as I dang well can. And I want to master my craft as best as I can. I want to put all my mental energy into the coaching. I don't want to be distributing energy to all these other things that are just distractions. Can you see what happens to most of us? We distract ourselves by all these other things. Instead, what do you really want to do with your time? It's not about status. Some of the basketball players and Red Bull athletes and NFL players I get to work with, if people in my field would think that's really cool, who cares? That's not what you're doing. It's the doing that where you get the enjoyment. It's the actual living life. For me, I want to coach. So what do I need to do to coach? And so I personally have committed to write an hour a day. Because if I write an hour a day, what's happening to my coaching sessions? See, what happens after a while, you get the experience and you start to do what once you get the experience? You start to coast. You start to think because you've done it before, you're entitled to coast. That you can just go through the motion. That people will invite me to go and speak. Just because I've done all this stuff, people will get me to speak. That's bullcrap. We've got to bring it every day. Every day I got to bring my best coaching stuff I can bring every day. Every week, every year. It's about bringing your best stuff all the time that matters. You know, the research actually says the more experience you have, the more people's performance drops off. Well, that's what the research actually shows. The more experience you have in a field, the worse performing you get because you coast. There's actually a theory of thought, a theory that you should fire your employees every 5 years and rehire to keep people teachable, hungry, just wanting to keep getting better. New England Patriots buy into that. Except for Tom Brady, they recycle everyone through every 3 to 4 years. I don't like that research at all, do you? But what happens again to most people, they get this experience in their head and they're not using it because they start to get mentally lazy. Because they're not trying to perfect their craft all the time. They're not always trying to get better. So we love things that we have potential. I want to flip through this really quick. We don't like things that we don't feel competent at. We love things that we do feel competent at. Hence, what is it wise for us all to do? Put your energy into what you love to do the most. Figure out what your strengths are and put your energy to what you love to do the most. When you do that, what will happen is you're going to have a growth mindset. Like Carol Dweck talks about, you're going to have a learning mindset and you're going to grow rapidly. If you don't do what you love, here's the 3 steps. If you don't do what you love, you're going to start coasting. Those of you that have teams and people that are working for you, that's a big red flag. When you catch people coasting, that means they're bored. They're not engaged with what they're doing. And they're not just going to stay coasting. Coasting leads to being a detractor, where you're always whining and complaining. And that then leads to incompetence. And the very definition of incompetence isn't that you don't have the skills. Incompetence is you have the skills, but you're performing so far beneath what you're capable. That's incompetence. You're well beneath what you're capable of doing. So we've got to figure out first what we love. Then training. Practice again makes what? Practice makes permanent. It's the consistency of the practice that matters. So be very careful what you choose to work on. And then I wanted to get to this part. You probably, those of you that have seen me talk, what is that there, guys? So those of you that have heard me talk, you've seen me do this before. Can everybody stare at that picture for a while? Really try this. Really zone in and really visualize that Mona Lisa there. Okay, now close your eyes and keep trying to visualize the Mona Lisa as good as you can. Close your eyes for me. Don't think of the Mona Lisa with a big, bushy, hairy mustache. Open up your eyes. What'd you do? Can you see how the mind works? The mind doesn't understand the word don't. If I'm playing golf and I'm over the ball and on the way down, my thought pops in my head, don't hit it in the water, what happens? You hit it in the water. That's how the mind works. When you start to get sick and you tell yourself, don't get sick, what happens? You got to program the mind to what you're going to do, not what you're not going to do. One of the greatest sources of interference is we start focusing on what not to do. And here's the 3 biggest sources of interference to the human race. Number 1 is self-doubt. I don't care if you're a musician, a CEO, this is always the biggest source of interference. Self-doubt is actionable negative. So out of our hierarchy, which pattern is that? Subtractive patterns. When you start doubting yourself, you're creating these patterns in the back of your brain where fear exists. And when you have doubt, you don't even try. And that was my example. You wake up in the morning and tell yourself, I can't get out of bed. And you say it with passion, you don't even try to get out of bed. My son used to come and flop in on the bed in the morning and he'd say, I don't want to go to school. I don't want to shave. That's nowhere near as deep-seated, so what is he really doing? He's waiting for somebody else to tell him, yeah, you got to get up, you got to get going. That's not as deep-seated as I can't, but I can't is a dangerous phrase. So that's what self-doubt is. Self-doubt is focusing on what you can't do. It's an action that is negative. Obviously, Tiger Woods was struggling with this for a while. Okay? How do we counteract it? Self-belief, bar none, most important skill. Just a couple of weeks ago, working with one of these NBA players that's going to be in the All-Star game. He's one of the top players in the world right now. He said to me, to this day, that is still the best skill. You got to believe in yourself. You got to believe in yourself and have that as the core of everything you do. Because if you believe in yourself, now what happens to the action? The belief needs to be to you. I can do this. I will do this. Because that's what leads to action. When you don't believe in yourself, you're waiting for somebody else to do it for you. You're waiting for somebody else to ask you out on a date. You're waiting for people to tell you what work to do. You're always waiting in life, and that's coasting. When you have self-belief, you take action. You're not waiting for others. And you guys have heard me say this, it's a can-do mindset. When you listen to people that have significant self-belief, the words coming out of the mouth are always proactive, not reactive, not positive. Positive is too fluffy. They're proactive words. They're always focusing on what they can do. They're always creating success, not waiting for it to come to them. This picture is the picture of David Weiss. He was number 9 in the country in the U.S. when the U.S. Olympic asked me to start working with freestyle and snowboarders. The coach said to me at the time, don't spend too much time with him. He's number 9 in the country. We got to put our resources to our top 4. I did one session with this guy. He had tremendous talent. He was a quiet-spoken kid. All we needed to do was to get him to start believing in himself. Go and Google David Weiss. See how many gold medals and how many world championships he's won. He's completely dominated this sport. You don't need to change your personality to be high-performing. You need to believe in yourself. Amazing athlete there. The next one is negative intelligence. Negative intelligence is always accumulating what not to do. Intelligence is an action that's negative. When you're always focused on what not to do, you're putting yourself in bondage there. How do we counteract that? Positive intelligence, you've all heard me do this, the 3-to-1. This goes back to the red marks on your chain. Get a chain going, get a wall, get a calendar, put it on your wall. Commit to do something every single day. That is the key to success, the consistency of what you're doing. Commit to do something every day, 15 minutes, half an hour. It doesn't matter what it is. Commit to do something you want to do towards your life and do it every day. Every time you cross it off, it's a dopamine rush. And what happens is it just builds that confidence in yourself because you're moving towards it. This skill is the same skill. At the end of each day, look at what you're doing well. I got a business client I've been coaching for years. They're a software company. Love these guys. Every day they got all these monitors on their walls where they have all the tickets that their guys need to close. At the end of each day, when they're closed, every time they close it, not each day, after they finish the work, those tickets leave the screen. So what is everybody in the company seeing all day, every day? What they still need to do. What's happening to your energy when all you ever see is what you still need to do and never see what you've actually done? What's happened to your energy for life? We did this coaching session this week. They're changing it. They're going to reprogram the software to where the ticket's up there. Every time they complete it, there's an X that goes over the completed one. So everyone can see what they're doing. What sort of energy is that going to bring for their culture? You got to celebrate the successes, guys, because it's a dopamine hit. It's a drug. And it's addictive. It's a good drug. Okay, third one here. Worrying about others. I wanted to get to this because this is millennials. Those of you in here that are millennials, those of you that work with millennials. Millennials are born and raised by the World Wide Web. Those of you in here that are Gen Xers, that are like my age, you're born and raised by the neighborhood. Millennials weren't raised by the neighborhood. They're raised by the World Wide Web. Millennials don't go and eat lunch by themselves. They have to have 4 or 3 other friends there to eat with them. They're raised doing things with other people. They weren't raised to do things by themselves. And so what happens with millennials is they're so worried about who? Boss? They're not worried about their boss. They're worried about who? Their peers. There's this one guy in the G League. G League is like the level down from the NBA. It's our development league. There's this one young guy that we have that's really good, super talented. And he just needs to work on his mental toughness. The GM of our organization keeps calling saying, you have to work with Dr. Manning. Has not worked with me once all season. All of a sudden, I get a call from him Monday. I've been trying to get him to call me back forever and trying to meet with me. He's never in town where the team is. He's always, because he's with the G League team. He calls me Monday. I answer it. I'm like, the first thing I said to him is, why are you calling me? He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, did the GM tell you to call me? He's like, yeah. That was his response. Meaning, is he going to do it because his boss tells him? No. I'm like, who told you to call me? He's like, and I don't want to share the name, but one of our superstars that's in the All-Star game, he's like, he told me to call you. Who is he listening to, the boss or his peers? It's called coordination chores. Millennials are worried about each other. That's how they're raised, and it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. They're interdependent. They work together with others. That's why we got to build that culture of celebrating each other's success, not just your own success, but celebrating each other's. One of the greatest sources of interference from millennials is they're so worried about what everyone else is doing. And so we got to help them with that. We got to help them to control what they have control over, and in particular, what is the one thing on this planet we have direct control over? Yourself. We got to be responsible for ourselves. That's not being selfish. That's self-accountable. We've got to teach them how to be responsible for themselves and stop holding themselves accountable for the things they don't have direct control over. Every psychological issue is rooted in control. Every one. I want to say that again. Every psychological issue is rooted in control. The more you master yourself, what happens? Your sense of control in life goes up. What the research shows, the highest performing people and organizations are always working on themselves. They're always trying to get better. They're never fixed. They're never staying in one place. They never think they're arrived. They're just always trying to learn and get better. And then they're always trying to develop others. It's about building people that leads to success. That's what we keep seeing. And we know more about the mind in the last 10 years than we've known the whole time of our human existence. We're really understanding what it is. And what we're finding is it's about understanding the individual. Everyone's a little bit different, and we've got to help people figure out what works for them. We've got to help people figure out what works well for them and allow them to have that belief. That's why that self-belief is so critical. Okay, let's go through this again because I want to make sure I leave you with actions. Number one skill today is what? In the end, in our complex life where we've got so much stimulation coming at us, massive cognitive load on all of us, just remember, what is the one thing that matters most? What you do. Thomas Henry Huxley once wrote, at the great end of life, it's not knowledge, it's action. It's what you do that defines you. So own it. Be deliberate with it and be responsible for everything you do, number one. Second, commit to something. Get a calendar, don't get a calendar, whatever it is, but commit to something every day. Do something every day because the consistency of it is everything. It's amazing how powerful it is to be working towards something every single day so you can cross that off. You miss a day, what do you do the following day? Get back on that chain again. Jerry Seinfeld said, don't break the chain. I don't like the word don't because that's a reactive word. Keep the chain alive. So first, focus on doing, keep the chain alive. Next skill is, you've got to have self-belief. Work on your self-belief. It's not just something you have or you don't have. You have to work at your self-belief. Work on it every day, which is the can-do mindset. Fourth, 3-to-1 it. Constantly 3-to-1. What am I doing well? Find those celebrations so you're building that dopamine. 3 things I did well, 1 thing I can do better. Let me role play that for a minute. How are we doing time here? Okay, I need to finish up here. So at the end of each day, this is one of the greatest awesomeness about being bald. Being bald is you can shower at night because it doesn't matter if you get wet hair. Every night I shower and I think about what did I do best? What did I learn this today? What did I do best, or what did I learn? What did somebody else that I know did well today? And usually a thought will pop into my head, and I'm like, no, that's not good enough. Go deeper. Push your mind to go deeper. And really push your mind to figure out with exactness the 3 things you learned that day. Because where do you need the information? On your notebook? You need it in your head. You got to get it in your head. It's the same with school. The secret to doing well in school is getting it in your head. What most people do is they take notes in class, then take notes on their notes, then put their notes on little cards. Why? You think you're studying hard, but you're just busy. The key to doing well for school is getting the information where? You got to get in your head. Because when you get it in your head, you don't need your notes. The information is with you. You're now better. That's the key to success, is doing it and creating the habit so it's a part of you. It's what you do. You're living and breathing it. It's who you are now. It's not out on your notes somewhere else. It's a part of who you are. So every night I go over that in my head. What did I do well? 3 things. I get it organized. Then I ask myself, what's 1 thing I want to do better? Last skill is, what do we have direct control over? Be responsible for yourself. Be accountable for yourself. That doesn't make you selfish at all. It helps you to be incredibly accountable for what you're doing. It's one of the most freeing things in our lives. I say these things at this point in my life because I was 48, as I said. That's where I started. My dad died at 52. I had a colonoscopy, which is not one of the funnest things to ever talk about or even think about. Completely clear bill of health. My goal now for the rest of my life, what am I going to do with every minute, every day, and every week of my life for the rest of my life? I want to make sure everything I do is deliberate and what I want to do, because time is our greatest asset. I want to do everything I can to help build people and to help people be everything they want to be. That's what matters to me. It's not about the status, it's not about money, it's about helping people. Figure out what you want to do with your life, because all that matters in the end is that action. It's what you spend your time doing that matters. Thanks, I appreciate you guys letting me come. I love this stuff, thanks. Thanks.